Hello and welcome to this episode of the P&E podcast. My name's Jack Jacob and I am your host. In this episode, I'm joined by James Rawlinson, who's the Director of Health Informatics at Rotherham NHS Foundation Trust. James and I have a very interesting conversation. He talks through some of the tough times in his life when his parents split up at the age of 8 to his mother sadly passing away of cancer a little over 10 years ago. Stuff that's really moulded him and shaped his outlook today. James is also an avid flyer and tells us about his dreams of becoming an RAF engineer and how he fell into his degree in computer science at Manchester University based on his love of the rave scene in what he calls Madchester. With a career in the NHS spanning over 25 years, James talks about how the ever-changing nature and positive purpose of the sector keeps him going, and as a leader he emphasises maintaining tempo, a sense of purpose and direction, and keeping promises and commitments to build trust and stability. Please do enjoy this episode as we get to know the person behind the job title. Hi everyone, before we get into this conversation, just want to give a big shout out to this episode sponsor, Common Time. Common Time have launched a new brand which is now called In Time. ICOM, a next-generation clinical communications app produced by Common Time, has demonstrated itself as the market-leading application to help replace aging bleep technology currently delivered by pagers, streamlining clinical communications whilst providing a secure and, most importantly, integrated clinical messaging tool that provides real-time instant messaging for all staff. Common Time understands the structure of NHS organisations. As such, ICOM allows its users to interact as individuals, in groups, or directly using their roles and responsibilities within their team. The application hosts impressive features that include automating workflows, escalating or diverting any undelivered or unactioned requests, as well as automating the booking of beds and operating theatres. Common Time are now working in partnership with 8 NHS trusts in helping them to achieve their overarching digital strategy. James, thank you so much for coming on. Really pleased to be speaking with you. Oh. So let's start at the start, really, for you. So talk to me about your kind of childhood. So where are you from? Because I know you've got a northern accent, but my placement on accents is pretty poor. So talk to me about where you grew up and stuff.
Right. So I grew up in a city just south of Leeds called Wakefield.
Yep.
In West Yorkshire. I'll just say early 70s and let you sort of figure out sort of age, sort of range, sort of then, I guess, really, to a degree. Yeah, I live, and I live today probably 200 or 300 metres away from the house where my granddad was born. So us Rawlinsons have been in this area for the best part of 150 odd sort of years. Now please don't think anybody or there's some grandiose estate ownership. These are, I was born on
Lord Rawlinson, I'm going to start calling you.
Lord Rawlinson. I was brought up in a council estate. So was my father, and my grandfathers and family beforehand was before council estates were invented. Yeah, so I'm from Wakefield. I'm proud to be from Wakefield, and a particular area of Wakefield, quite near the sort of motorway, quite near the one called Flanshaw. Yeah, so that's me, and my email address links to that as well.
Yeah.
Crikey. So yeah, I brought up in Wakefield. I have a twin sister.
Oh, so you're a twin?
I'm a twin. Yep.
You have a really strong connection with your sister.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, everybody describes us as chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
So she's not like me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Both in appearance and manner and outlook and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have a really strong connection with her. It was great growing up because Helen was, how can I explain? She was a sort of girl, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, she was a sort of person who hung around the back of the bike sheds, smoking cigarettes and all that sort of stuff, whereas I wasn't. But whenever I got into
was you the principal and she was the naughty one, right?
A little bit like that, but maybe with a dark undertone, really. So I think I was probably cute enough to get away with it, or astute enough to get away with it. But whenever there was trouble, then our Helen, or our Ellen, as we say around here, would come barging down the sort of school sort of fields and sort it out, really. So yeah, whenever any scrapes or anything, then she'd start sort of standing in front of us and sort of.
That was almost the opposite role. Your sister looked out for you rather than you looked out for your sister.
Yeah, and then my parents got split up when I was quite young. We moved to another part of Wakefield and brought up with a sort of stepfather and two stepbrothers who were
How,
very close to
how old were you when that happened with your parents?
8.
Do you remember it quite
Yeah,
vivid?
yeah, very well, yeah.
Was
Yeah,
it was it a hard period in your time at that? Because I've got my children, so my eldest is 6 now, and obviously she's
yeah,
very aware of.
yeah. There was a lot. I think there's quite a lot of bitterness and anger really
Still
around.
there.
Not so much now because my mum passed away quite a while ago now. She passed away quite early with sort of cancer about sort of 10, 12 years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
So that bitterness is not there anymore. You know, time's a great sort of healer, but certainly at the time, yeah. Particularly my dad was quite bitter about it all for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Well, and then
Yeah,
and so then so that was this kind of age that you was last couple of years of primary school and stuff. So then you went into secondary school, what, age 11, something like that?
yeah.
And
Um,
how'd you do at school?
so academically, I did sort of pretty well. You know, crikey, going back that far. If you did pretty well at your GCSEs, you got flashed over sort of the front page of the local rag. So the year of my GCSEs, there's me from a state school comprehensive, and everybody else was from private schools across sort of Wakefield. So yeah, that made me sort of quite proud. And when I think back about it, when I was very sort of young, my parents were still sort of together. I always remember my mum going back to school, and she used to sort of drag us. I say drag us along. We used to go along sort of willingly, really. So she went back to school when I don't know when we were 6 or 7. And we used to go along and follow her. And crikey, if I think hard about it, even then I remember her doing some sort of computer sort of courses in the very early 80s, going back to school. So yeah, academically, and that led to I've always enjoyed doing academic sort of stuff, particularly sort of maths and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So that
Uh,
comes in, the math side of it comes in with your IT background as well. A lot of maths behind IT,
yeah,
and logical
yeah,
thinking and problem solving, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I think so. And I always had a bit of a background of sort of early 80s sort of IT and sort of VIC-20s and Commodores and things. And I guess I was, yeah. So Christmas, once or twice, we got a computer, I think. Yeah, we did. My sister didn't want one, but it was a joint present. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't have loads of money. So I was like Yorkshireman and not having a lot of money, but it's not like that at all. But yeah, so we had joint sort of friends. So yeah, that was a fascination in IT, sort of computers, and did ICT computing, sorry, sort of GCSE in the very sort of early days.
Yeah.
I wrote a piece of software to do top 10 charts. And I remember, I think at the time the number one was The Only Way Is Up by Yazoo or something. I'd sing it, but I'm no singer.
Is that is that the only way is Essex song now? The only way is up.
Anyways, it's got yeah, and so at school, yeah, I had that. I'm also nearly deaf in one ear, so that can sometimes affect how I sort of come across. So as well as having dull northern tones, I am I've been deaf since I was about 12. I had an operation on my ear when I was very young. That didn't go very well, and it's caused deafness ever since.
And
So
so that's one side.
yeah. So it's really good. So if I want to go to sleep, I lie in my good ear and I can't hear a thing. If I go out for a meal with friends, if I keep the people I don't like to my right, and they can talk all I like, and I can't hear a bloody word they're saying. What's not very good is if in terms of I can't determine where sound's coming from. So if someone shouts at me loud, I have no idea where that's sort of coming from, really. So
Yeah.
that's a bit problematic. And as a kid, I was very much wanting to be a engineer in the RAF. That was my dream as a very young child. I did everything I could to get to that. So I joined the Air Cadets when I was young. I was in the Air Cadets for about 7 or 8 years.
Yep.
No, about 5 or 6 years. Applied for sixth form sponsorship, and I remember at the time, I remember telling an ENT consultant, Dr. Gandhi at Batley Hospital, I think it was, said, I'm going down to Biggin Hill, which is, I think it's near Romford, I think.
Yeah. Biggin
Yeah.
Hill's just
I think
south.
it's South London.
southeast side
Is it?
of the
Yeah. So I remember telling him I'm going to go. I've applied for sixth form sponsorship. I'm going down, and he looked at me and says, "You will never get. I hate to say it, but you'll never join the armed forces with your ear."
Right.
I thought I'll prove you wrong, and he was dead right. Yeah, it was quite embarrassing. It was a bit of a wake-up moment, really. 16 years old, making my own way from Wakefield all the way down to Biggin Hill, being surrounded by loads of posh boys from public schools who were very articulate, very confident, and then being sort of a bit, I don't mind saying, a bit humiliated in public in front of them with my hearing test.
Really?
Yeah, and being kicked out, essentially, being told to go home. It wasn't very nice.
How long was you there for? Was you there for a couple of hours? And then that
2.5 days.
Pardon?
2.5 days.
2.5 days.
Yeah, it was a 3-day selection process. So day one was all the tests, then you had a meal and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Day two was sort of fitness and physical, and that's when they just announced, what's up with you? Can't you hear us properly? I explained what was going on, and he says, well, you might as well just go now. And that was it, really. Yeah, bizarre. So,
that was him. So it wasn't tactful. It wasn't.
No, it was quite a young corporal who was organising it all. He was, I don't know, maybe when you reflect back, sometimes your perceptions of what happened are very different to the reality. So
well, that's what they say about memories, isn't it? That your memories, that you basically recall memories from the last time you think of them.
Yes.
You don't actually think of the memory. You think about the last time you thought of it. So you can basically change the way that you think about stuff by kind of convincing yourself the last time you think about it is what actually happened.
Yeah, they said they're very subjective about the memories. And there's a lot of sort of thought around that. Yeah, so that was quite sort of young. I was like 15, 16, sort of GCSE sort of time. Did well GCSEs, stayed on the sixth form, did A-levels, and at the same time discovered sort of rave music, girls, drink, and anything else that sort of came with it.
You avoid
northern sort of rave scene, really. All in. Worked at a nightclub for 2.5 years. So a lot of the academic stuff went out the window.
Yeah.
Big style.
Yeah. You hit the party scene, did you?
Yeah. It's quite a big northern, particularly Manchester. So this was Time of Happy Mondays and Stone Roses and Inspiral Carpets, Madchester, I think they used to call it.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, that's why I'm managed by the skin in my teeth to get some A-levels and get to Manchester University.
Yeah. And you've done computer science at Manchester University.
I did, yes. Yeah.
So once you found out that you couldn't join the armed forces, particularly the RAF, was the focus then for you to join or to pursue a career in IT, or did you kind of fall into that?
Absolutely, sort of fell into it. So the focus there was to enjoy the sort of northern sort of dance music sort of scene as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And just.
So are you a dancer then? Can you dance?
No. And enjoy all, Ibiza and all that sort of stuff, and just go mental, really. I think for about sort of 2 years.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go to Manchester. I really liked Manchester as a town. I still like Manchester. It's a great sort of city. It's got a great sort of vibe. Lovely place to sort of live, loads of history and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I just wanted just to get to Manchester University. That was.
I assume you didn't support Leeds United Football Club then.
I do, yes. Yeah.
So I'm surprised you like Manchester so much then.
Yeah. But it's funny. So in my first year at Manchester, we stayed in sort of Hall's residence, which are right next to Manchester University Hospitals on Oxford Road. And they one of the guys who I'm still friends with now was a big Man United fan. And the only reason he went to Manchester was because he supported Manchester United.
Right.
At the time, you needed tokens, and they were a crappy sort of team then in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So Manchester University, and that was great. Yeah, I loved it. Great sort of 3 years.
Brilliant. And so from there then, so that takes you to what, about 95 now?
About 94. Nearly.
94. Yeah. Okay. And so you then I assume went out to work in an IT. So what was your kind of, because you've got a computer science degree, so I assume that incorporates your infrastructure, your networking, your
It was mainly in those times. It was mainly software programming.
Okay.
With writing software. So at the end of university, all degrees you have to pick a topic for a dissertation, sort of thing.
Yep.
I didn't realise I had to pick a topic for a dissertation until someone said, "Have you picked yours?" I'm like, "Well, what are you on about?" And then because I didn't really hang out that very much with people on my course, I hung around with loads of other people.
You're too busy raving.
Yeah, they're all a bit sort of geeky, a bit sort of boring. And so I got to the big long list of topics for a dissertation, and I kid you not, there was about 200 on there that all got lines to except for 2 of them. There's only 2 things left. One was to build a system, an owl, so its eyes would track you around a room, or write a GP IT software system.
Right.
I knew nothing about owls. I knew a little bit about GPs, so I wrote a GP IT software system in my 3rd year at Madchester University. It was rubbish. It was absolutely rubbish. I think it would work properly. And then, so following that, when I came back home to Wakefield, I taught people IT for free for about 3 months just to get some experience. I was doing nothing. I didn't get a job. I didn't. Applied for a few, they called milk round graduate jobs, didn't get any of those.
What grades did you get in your degree?
Not very good one, I'll leave it at that. I think I just managed to sort of scrape through.
It makes sense.
And then I taught people on the dole IT for 2 months.
Yep.
I didn't get paid for it.
Yep.
But that gave me a foot in the door, and I got a job at Wakefield Health Authority as an IT support in October '94 in the NHS.
Yep. And you've never left?
And I've never left. For a long time, and I still say it now, there's a bit of a joke that I've been trying to I've been in the NHS 25 years, I've been trying to leave for 24. And every year I just had one to it. But do you know what? I'm not right sure whether I would. I quite like, I really like what I do. And
what is it that you like about what you do then? So you like what you do, but what is it? Is it the sense of purpose? Is it the complex, health economy that it sits in? Is it, what is it? Is it a technical challenge?
I think probably a combination of all that. So I think one of the great things about being in the industry that we're in, you, I, and all of us, is it is always forever sort of changing. There's always new stuff coming. And if you like sort of new stuff, it's not, it changes all the time. Those that aren't in the NHS say the NHS can be accused of being quite stagnant and not changing. I'm not sure that's the case. So the NHS is always sort of changing. There's a strong sense of actually doing something positive, I think. You talk about a career making a difference, then I'm not right sure there's any other bigger career making a difference. I often sort of talk to people about the NHS is, my take on it is I see the sort of NHS as a family. It's a family of organisations, a family of things that we do. And like all families, you get on with some of them and some of them you don't. Yeah. But you know what? When things are pretty tough, families tend to stick together and tend to do some really good things. And coronavirus is one example.
Yeah.
And there are lots going forward. And I really like that. I really like the fact that there's a common sort of thread all the time. Most people, in fact, everybody's touched the NHS. Touched the industry. Knows a little bit about the industry that I work in. So, and that's good. You don't always get that, I think.
Yeah, sure. So fast forward a little bit. So you worked in kind of a junior level kind of IT support.
Yeah. There's only 2 of us in the whole of Wakefield Health Authority.
Oh, really?
Doing IT. That would it.
You're second up in IT. You did all right then. So
there wasn't very much IT around then. There were no PCs. There were none of that sort of stuff at all.
What was you supporting then? Like fax machines and phones and things like that?
No, there were no. There was so there's a big sort of finance Unix sort of system, and then lots of the NHS had a big contract with I think it's now owned by Fujitsu, ICL.
Okay, yeah.
So that did all word processing and all that sort of stuff. So supporting that. I did manage to on my 3rd week there, delete the whole of Wakefield Health Authority's finances. I was being really clever. I thought I knew something. I knew a particular sort of command that no one would knew, and it made the job a lot easier. And
Oh,
unbeknownst to me, it went and deleted every single file on this Unix mainframe.
so how did you get it back?
We retested the backup tapes and did a restore. Took about 2 days.
Oh, I bet
Yeah.
you've never
Yeah.
wanted the ground to swallow you.
Yeah. It wasn't very. It was very, very. My boss at the time, Noel Akers, was very understanding, and a great guy. When I think back, I think I've been sort of lucky with, or fortunate with the sort of bosses and people around me I've had.
Yep.
I can look back just about every time and think, I've never really had, been 1 or 2, but not by and large, many sort of bosses and all that sort of thing who haven't been great. Noel's been great. I can go through them all really. So that was Wakefield for us. I was there for 2.5 years. Went to Bradford Health Authority, was there working as an IT manager for a group of practices in Keighley, in West Yorkshire. Interestingly, that group of practices, the lead GP had an idea about why don't we have one IT system across all those GPs. Got a long story short, that lead GP is a medical director for TPP, and the idea was that they wrote TPP System 1.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked for, or worked as part of that initial TPP offering that then.
No. So.
Well, no, but it wasn't TPP then, was it? Right. It was a GP surgery that had just built a system.
Yeah. So I moved on. I thought that's never going to work. As if that's going to work. And I moved. I bought a house at that time. I just bought a house, and I moved back to a job near to home. But yeah, it's quite good. Dr. John Parry, he's very sort of visionary sort of GP IT person.
Yeah.
Who is medical? I think he's medical director for TPP.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guy. And I came back to work in Wakefield.
Awesome. So fast forward a bit. Talk to me about when you first got into leadership positions then. So what was the sense of achievement like for you? And actually answer that first and I'll ask the next question after.
Yeah, so first leadership, I think the Bradford job has a bit of sort of leadership. So that's a group of practices. So I guess what do you mean by sort of leadership is leadership, managing staff, or, to me, leadership is about determining and sort of setting direction, understanding, helping individuals and organisations steer towards something that is better than using technologies as to what they've got sort of today. And we did a little bit of that in Bradford. And then in Wakefield, when I got the job in Wakefield, I had a little team working with me then, sort of probably late 20s, and sort of start from there, really, I think.
Yeah. Nice. So the question I was going to ask, what does leadership mean to you? What's good leadership?
Crikey, that's what does leadership sort of mean to me? I think I can tell you what bad leadership is, and maybe that's probably a better way of answering that sort of question. I think maintaining sort of promises and sort of commitments. Sometimes, maintaining sort of tempo, maintaining a sense of purpose, a direction, keeping sort of people sort of together. Often I've seen where leaders let things sort of slip, slide, fragment. People go off in their own sort of way. I think leadership, people being prepared to make tough decisions and sticking by it. Once, twice, again, I've seen examples where there's been tough decisions and people just don't stick to it. There's not been like a joined up sort of approach to it. Having a strong sort of chin, I think sometimes. Communicating well, I believe. Keeping people informed of what you're up to.
Yep.
Sometimes what we do at work isn't easy, is it? blooming heck, if work were easy, then then we'd all do it. It isn't. That's what we come to do on our sort of day-to-day sort of lives. And I think having a bit of fun as well and enjoyment.
What's your leadership style then? Because we've met a couple of times at my events and so on, and I could never see you like having a go at someone, or and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean that in a good way. That I can't ever imagine you raising your voice, shouting, and being that kind of authoritarian type.
Yeah.
That
I think people report to me might say something a little bit different.
Really?
yeah, but not by and large.
Yeah.
I think I'd hope the only people who could tell me what my you asked me what my leadership style is. I think that's partly for others to answer about me, not for me to answer about myself. I think I'm sort of fair. I think people. I'd hope I'm fair. I'd hope I push people hard. I think.
Yep.
I have no sense of entitlement as to what I do on a day-to-day basis, and that therefore nobody should be entitled to do what they have on a day-to-day basis. We are, sounds very grand, but we're custodians of my family's sort of taxes, your family's taxes, the public sort of sector, and with that becomes I would say is an increased level of responsibility.
Yep.
And it's really important that we all do our absolute best for that. So I have quite a strong sense of sort of public servants, I guess, really. Now, is that being drilled into me because I've been here 25 years? Maybe it has. Or actually, maybe that was inside myself anyway at the beginning.
Is there anything about the sector that you'd change? Perhaps the politics, the bureaucracy, the red tape? Or do you think it's absolutely vital to?
I think a little bit more long-termness. We do live year to year, even though we have a bit of a longer term sort of view on stuff.
Long-term plan, eh? Now?
Yeah, long-term planning. But it does feel a bit, particularly the finances bit, does seem a bit sort of year to year, hand sort of mouth, the whim of sort of politicians. If I could change that, I'd change that. Is it possible to change that? I'm not right sure. Actually, that gives a bit of excitement sort of sometimes around it. I think
that's part of the battle, though, isn't it? Is that you've not got all the money in the world to play with. You've got a finite amount of resources, a finite number of hours in the day, staff, etc., etc. But at the same time, you're expected to deliver high class, world quality innovation, and basically you're. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your job needs to ultimately be making other people's jobs easier through technology.
Yeah, it's about making. Yeah, absolutely. We should be about making things more effective, more efficient, easier to interact with, all that sort of stuff, and keeping managing expectations. So, I think so. When I started my sort of career in the NHS, if you want a decent technology, you come to work. Now people put their hand in the pocket, and that's fundamentally shifted. I think people's expectation of what we do day to day. It's raised that bar, and we have so many people who the other sort of adage about, or the factoid about the NHS is it is the most intellectual, intelligent organisation on the planet. Is it something like I don't know the exact number, but 75 to 85% of people who've got first-class degrees and above.
Really?
We call them doctors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Nurses all have sort of degrees. There is no, so with the, you can't get away with stuff. But I like that. That's
There's no pulling the wool over people's eyes, is there?
No.
Too intelligent as a collective for that.
Yeah, not at all. So yeah. So yeah, what's my leadership style? Could be sort of pretty honest, I think, really. I think reputation and perception is important in everything we sort of do, really. I think the other bit as well, I think leadership styles must change depending on circumstances.
Yep.
So if people are fairly rigid in terms of what they do and don't change, then that can be problematic going down the line.
Yeah.
I like to get, I like to roll my sleeves up. I think I'm one of the. There aren't that many CIOs who do what I do. I think who have come from the similar background as to I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've really worked your way up from the base layer of IT to now the top layer in a kind of 25-year or close to 26-year career. Are you proud of what you've achieved?
I don't see the achievement as in past tense, first and foremost.
Okay.
I'm proud of where I am. Definitely, I'm proud of what I've done so far. It's for my family and friends to be so proud of me. It's not about my own. I don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm the big I am.
Come on. Another day.
Yeah, well, I made it today, aren't I? Wonderful. In fact, sort of far from it. There's always more to do, and there's always more to achieve. There's always other stuff sort of going on.
Yeah. People ask me if I'm proud of myself, and my answer is not yet, really.
Yeah.
People have. I think from the outside, right? You've obviously got such a harder, critical relationship with yourself than other people have with you, right?
Yeah.
And so from the outside, people are like, you're young and you've achieved so much. I haven't really started yet. From what I want to achieve, I've not really scratched the surface yet. Like I've put the base. I'm digging the trenches at the minute to put the concrete layers in, right?
Yeah.
And so I hear you with that one because
and there's a really good guy out. I think he's really good. I quite like to listen to him. He's a professor of clinical psychology from Toronto University. Professor Peter Jordanson. He's quite vocal at the moment, prolific. He's seen as a bit of a right wing, but he's very sort of intelligent. And he talks about, everybody's got pain and sort of suffering in their lives. He's been a clinical psychologist with some of the most perceived successful people on the planet, and we all have our own trouble and sort of strives. Yeah. It's just all relative.
We're all a bit messed up.
Yeah. So, in terms of achieving, and then he talks about actually, if you set yourself a goal of achieving happiness, you'll never ever get there because you can't get it. It's not a thing you can get to. I get that. I subscribe to that. There's still a lot to do. I've been sort of chair of governors of schools in sort of Wakefield. I don't mind sort of saying my wife's Catholic, my children go to Catholic school. I converted to Catholicism about 10, 15 years ago. That's quite sort of strong to me as well.
So you convert. So you're now a Catholic, yeah?
Yeah. I've done it for a couple of years, but I'm what's called a Eucharistic minister. So if you need sort of Catholic last rites, then I technically can give it to you.
There we go.
Yeah. One of those things tells the facts that people might not know about. Yeah. I'm a Eucharistic minister.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's quite important. I think having that frame of reference is important. I really do. That's what that gives to me anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we talked about kind of prouds and things you've achieved and so on.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of perhaps the more challenging moments in your career, or actually in your life?
My mum passing away when she was fairly young. That was quite sort of challenging.
How old were you at the time when that happened?
I would have been in the mid-30s. My mum was 50. She had us sort of quite young. So I was 58. Yeah. So that was quite sort of sudden. That was really tough actually for me and for my sister and things.
Yeah.
So that been sort of quite challenging. I must admit, I don't really look from a private life perspective having that much of challenges more than anybody else. It's, being a good dad, being a good husband and all that sort of thing. We've all got those things that we've got to do. Work-wise, there's been a few sort of big sort of projects. So I'm currently in Rotherham. I've been in Rotherham 5 years. Before that, I was in Wakefield. Mid Yorkshire hospitals. We changed I led the change of the EPR, the pass sort of system. That was quite the first sort of big IT sort of change. That was 8 years ago. That was difficult. There were lots of sleepless nights. Never really experienced anything that like that before.
Just from the pressure of delivering it and the
yeah, extreme pressure. Not because one of the things about in particular hospitals is we don't turn off.
Of course,
so
it's a 24/7 operation, isn't it?
Yeah. We don't send people home at 5 o'clock on a Friday. Our customers don't go away, they come back on a Monday morning. They are there all the time. I know it's blatantly obvious, but doing change in that environment is really hard, especially when implementing systems and all that sort of stuff. There's, I think there's essentially 2 or 3 sort of types. One is changing what you've already got from A to B. That's a lot harder than just putting a new thing in.
Of course.
Putting new things in, you're not changing anything. You're just adding on some additional sort of functionality, skilling sort of people. But fundamentally switching from A to B is pretty hard. And that's why not many of us do it. If you look back, what's been on in NHS IT for the last sort of 10, sort of 15 years, a lot of it's layering on top of what we've already got. Not a great deal of switching over to either wraparound products, EDMSs, I would say big bang EPR implementations. The immense job that the Bradford and Corden and Huddersfield folks did in terms of that certain implementation is to be applauded. To do that in such a short period of time across those big organisations is amazing. But yeah, the PAS change at Mid Yorkshire Hospitals, which is 3 hospitals, 13th September 2013.
Never get that date, will you?
No, nearly killed me, I tell you. Literally killed me.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. But
is there ever moments like that where the pressure's so immense, and probably a lot of it's coming from your own self,
yes,
as well as external parties, obviously, and the stakeholders that you're kind of delivering it to and for. Is there any moments in that where you're going, once this is done, I'm out, I've had enough?
No, I've never sort of felt that at all. No, I just don't want to let some people down, I don't want what me and my teams do is to let other people sort of down. Is to make things worse.
You mentioned your reputation as well, so is there a lot of that on it as well, that you don't want to blemish or tarnish your reputation?
Yeah, I think reputation is the success of particular services like us is predicated on, I think, my view, is our reputation. And if people think, if organisations think, I don't know, the service you provide is rubbish, then it can be very difficult to change that. It becomes a lot harder. So that's as much about the quality and the confidence and the reputation and all that sort of stuff of what you sort of do.
I suppose your reputation. Sorry, I was going to say, I suppose your reputation almost is only as good as the last project that you deliver.
Yeah,
that's how long it lasts for, right?
Yeah, and that applies to all of us, I think. I think it really, really does. Yeah, so that's and it'd be same with your industry.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
As good as the last event I done, I suppose. And
because that's what people remember.
Well, you look at events like, say, EHI Live and things like that. How quickly did that reputation sour, and that event within 2-3 years finished?
It just disappeared.
Yeah, and that was the flagship. That was the flagship event, wasn't it? But then I think that comes down to leadership and so on and so forth as well, doesn't it? Because
it does, and keeping things relevant and sort of current, really. So yeah, I think so with the leadership sort of piece as well. I was touching earlier about I think I've been lucky enough, but again, everybody sort of says this to a degree. But there's been people throughout my sort of career who now are a little bit older. I look back and think, do you know what? I was really lucky to have them around me. they pointed and prodded me in the right direction. Gave me some really good advice that I've always sort of stuck with. Yeah, and I think sometimes as well, seeing things that aren't great, so you make sure you don't repeat those same mistakes. Then that's what's important. You take the good and bad out of everything.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
definitely.
been looking at being involved in some really exciting stuff. Built a couple of hospitals, three hospitals. One of them I enjoyed that much. I decided to, when my son was born, we opted to have him in the hospital we just built in Halifax.
Yeah.
So that was great, my father is in the sort of building trade, and one of the good things about being involved in those sorts of things is, every day not every day, but whenever I drive past those locations, I look at it and think, do you know what, I was involved in that.
Yeah.
And that's quite good, and I get a bit of a kick out of doing that sort of stuff. I get a bit of a kick out of seeing companies who had a bit of an idea and we've helped grow them and get them onto a bigger sort of stage. That's really good. And I enjoy doing that as well. About seeing others grow around us. I think it's great to be able to be in the industry that sort of long, particularly around Yorkshire and Humber area, is to see so many people sort of flourish and end up doing great things. And it's nice to think that I might have had some sort of influence on the way somewhere, maybe.
Yeah.
He says.
Yeah. So you've talked about things you like then. So talk to me about some of your bugbears as well, because I know you can be vocal about on LinkedIn about suppliers and things like that as well. So talk to me about some of your bugbears.
I'm not over keen on people who work in our industry who waffle and who are able to talk for a long time without saying very little. That winds me up immensely. So maybe that's just people get to the point.
Those that talk without saying nothing.
Yeah, and people who, particularly in our industry, there's people who work in IT who can talk and they know not very much about IT, and you can tell when they're talking, thinking great words, but you don't really know what you're on about. So that's a bit of a sort of bugbear. Winds me up. I can get wound up quite by suppliers sometimes, and who necessarily, I understand where they come from and all that sort of stuff. I do. I simply, I don't think I could ever work in sales. It would never be my sort of thing. But the number of times where you've come across people who've sort of promised the earth and actually never sort of delivered, because sometimes there is a disconnect between what sales and account people think that their teams can do and actually what their reality can do. And the number, I've seen that divide, that void, on more occasions than I choose to sort of remember, really. And that's just disappointing, because the bit that disappoints me a little bit is others will fall into that cycle a bit. We'll go down those rabbit holes.
When you say others, who are you talking about?
But maybe others in other NHS sort of trusts, other organisations, and it's not an individual sort of fault as such. Really, it's sometimes suppliers promising sort of too much. The COVID crisis has been a little bit of that. When it all kicked off, there were loads and loads of suppliers who, some really stepped up to the plate, some promised earth and delivered, and ultimately delivered very little. But it sounds like they were promising and delivering, and they were going to do loads of great stuff, but they didn't. They just couldn't. And we've got to prioritise what we do all the sort of time. We haven't got enough, space to deal with everything. So it's about trying to sort of minimise those distractions sometimes. So
when you say about distractions, talk to me about your email inbox. Because
I think my this may or may not surprise me. I've got 600 emails.
From when? Or just unread?
Well, just 600 emails, just total.
Yeah,
but I get hundreds a day, so I'm quite disciplined around all that sort of stuff. So and use the technology to its maximum. So if somebody emails me who's external to the NHS, it goes straight to an external folder, and every once in a while I look through and just go delete, 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 delete. If people,
Do you ever read?
yeah, don't even read it. Delete, 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 delete. If I get CC'd into stuff, that goes into another folder,
Yeah.
and I'll just quickly sort of scan through sort of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I've taken, I'll say, yeah. I've had run-ins with recruitment consultants who I've unsubscribed from their mailing list and they've not taken me off their mailing list. So I've reported them to, it's called REC, which is the industry, is it REC? Recruitment? There's some industry body for recruitment agencies.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
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 So I've done that a few times. I'm not afraid to do that. If I tell you I don't want to be communicated to you, then if you do it again, as far as I'm concerned, that's a breach of my confidence.
Okay. So you've got, you use a tech wisely, so you kind of filter the crap basically, and you're left with. So where would my email go? If I emailed you, we've got a relationship, we've communicated before. Would my email go in your outside?
Yours would, but you know me well enough to maybe try other channels that I would respond
Text you
to.
or call you.
Yeah. Yeah, if you know me well enough, you've got my number. You sort of call me or you sort of text me and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a process I do go through where I can add people to a bit of a whitelist, so then it'll land in my inbox.
Right.
But there are many of those.
I'm not privileged to be in the whitelist.
No, because otherwise I get inundated, and people I sort of coach and sort of mentor with, they get swamped with it.
Mm.
And you don't have to be swamped by it. It's your own swamp. And if you feel swamped by your inbox, it's your swamp, not anybody else's. So you need to do something about that.
Yeah.
There are things you can do.
Cool. So for a supplier then, so let's say I'm a supplier.
Yeah.
I've got what I feel is an innovative solution that's going to change the way that, I don't know, let's pick something. Outpatients is delivered, right? So virtual outpatient clinics or whatever it might be, right? Could really help your organization.
Yeah.
I've emailed you, not got back because I've landed in your rubbish folder, whether you're not going to check. Haven't got your mobile number, cannot connect on LinkedIn. How does someone or what's the way to approach James Rawlinson that gets listened to, that's going to enable you to see it and respond and actually say, right, actually this actually could help me. So how do people that you don't know of and don't know you get in touch with you when there is actually something that could help? Yeah.
So the first and foremost is what I'd say to people is jolly do your own work, and I mean really do your own work. Don't treat me like an idiot that sometimes a lot of people do. I do know this industry really, really well. So if an email starts quoting facts and figures that are just plainly wrong, you're not going to get anywhere. In fact, I'll probably share your email just with other people to delete you as well. And the amount of time, but suppliers do that. I think, really, do you think we're stupid or something?
Yeah.
So yeah, do your own work and really, really do your own work. As in, check what you're saying, double check it, triple check it. If you think something's innovative, then find out whether anybody actually really is doing it. Because sometimes we talk about innovate. What is innovation? Is innovation just something I'm not doing right now, but anybody else is? Or is innovation that no one anywhere has ever done before? The two things aren't the same. So yeah, how do you get sort of airtime? And I think you've got to find sort of partners to be able to get a sort of foot in some sort of door sort of somewhere. Demonstrate
like a referral or something like that.
Yeah, demonstrate success. How you do that, you need to be creative and sort of think a bit sort of differently. But yeah, demonstrate success. Prepare to take a risk. Not often, but occasionally you'll see suppliers where it's as if the risk is completely all mine. I'm looking after, I've said it before, but I'm looking after your family's taxes. Do you really think I should be taking that risk? I don't. If it's that good an idea, can save that sort of much money. Why don't they? Let's do like a risk share sort of approach.
If you don't deliver X, then we won't pay you, or
Yeah. So years ago, when we were building the hospitals in Wakefield, there was a few people had done it, but sort of check-in systems for outpatients, and there was a local. This guy lives fairly locally. He had a bit. He we went out to sort of tender. There's only 2 people who responded. And absolutely, I look back and he was prepared to take his own risk with his own, essentially, sort of with his own money a little bit, really. And that company's now got 80% of the UK market and is across parts of sort of Asia and sort of Australasia. So, good on them.
yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
I think they're great, and they took their own risks, and I like that. Let's try and do it a little bit sort of together. So but the key advice is do your homework. I've had phone calls where people have got through and said, I'm working with 250 trusts in the country. They're in 250 trusts in the country.
How?
Why are you doing that then? Because they're in 250 trusts in the country. And the conversations go on and on like that. So
yeah. Interesting. Talk to me about your job role as well, because your role for the Rotherham is Director of Health Informatics. Is that just a posh way of saying a health CIO?
It's interesting. Maybe it is. So Director of Health Informatics as a job role has probably been around the industry longer than CIO sort of name, I think. So I've been here sort of 5 years. So I was sort of asked to some degree to apply because Rotherham put in an EPR about sort of 10 years ago and didn't go very well. It was quite maligned, had a bit of a toxic reputation to it. The organisation itself had gone through a lot of change, had gone into sort of special measures as a result of the EPR. I think we're the only few examples nationally ever to have done that.
Wow.
And there's lots of reasons that are on public record as to why the organisation went sort of through that sort of then. So I was at Joy's, a bit of a new leadership team, and being really lucky that when I came to sort of Rotherham, we've got a CCIO, he's a colorectal surgeon, and he's ace.
Paul Slater, isn't it?
Richard Slater.
Richard Slater. Sorry.
No, Paul Curley. I think you might be thinking of my previous organisation.
That's it. Yeah.
No, CCIOs who are surgeons are great, I think.
Yeah. Well, I called Richard once, and I was inviting him to our event, and his mobile number was on his LinkedIn. I'm probably giving a game away there, so hopefully he's changed that now. So I called him and spoke to him. And I said, we've got this, this CCI panel discussion where we've got 4 CCIOs from GDE sites. Cool. That was like flying a red flag. GDE sites? Well, what about us that aren't GDE sites?
Yeah. That's how I was like, Richard.
Yeah. And
can you imagine, following this interview, can you imagine what me and Richard are like together, Blooming heck, we all scare the hell out of loads of people. His ace.
He didn't come, funnily enough.
Yeah, he didn't come. Again, I was lucky, so lucky to have Mr. Curley, Paul Curley at Mid Yorkshire, who was a CCIO before CCIOs were even the thing. Him and a guy who happens to be now the chief executive at Rotherham led some massive document EDMS project at Mid Yorkshire. We digitized a whole lot, 10, 12 years ago, long before a long time ago. And they led it from the front clinically. And that's I think that's part of what director of informatics jobs are. Is it's not always about standing at the front and leading. It's actually about getting people who have respect to lead.
So what from in terms of outward facing, this has got to be adopted by clinicians. So you do that side of it. I'll lead the techies that are going to deliver it for you.
And the supplier management, the vendor management, the technical bit, the software development, the information production, the interfacing, all that stuff, the contract management, the service specification, the systems architect, all that stuff that has to happen to make clinical things work well clinically.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we've worked really hard, Richard and I think we've been reasonably successful in Rotherham about any big IT change is a clinical thing supported by IT. The rhetoric's a little bit different. It's not an IT, it sounds a bit glib, not an IT project, but
Yeah,
sometimes there are IT projects.
yeah, of
If you
course.
kind of get a clinician to lead a network upgrade, then I think you're bloody doomed, personally. You've read too much of the manual. But, so some things need to be IT projects. A lot of things shouldn't be. And that's where, Richard and the team, and we've spent a lot of time trying to build up a good sort of clinical team. And when I was in Wakefield for a couple of years, I reported to the chief nurse. So I was a senior sort of IMT leader reporting to the chief nurse, which is fairly unusual.
Mm.
And that learned me
Like
ever so much.
finance or something that an IT person would report.
Yeah, normally the stickers under finance. I don't really know where to
I
stick
find that strange though. Why finance?
because
They fund the projects, or is that ultimately
I
it?
think partly because from projects, predominantly because of the information element.
Right.
So a lot of the information traditionally would drive finances,
Yeah.
contracts, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But reported to the chief nurse for 2.5, 3 years was great. Yeah, they were and still are an underrepresented workforce in IT in the NHS. Massive.
Yeah.
70% of our workforce are nurses and therapists.
Mm.
Yet we still, we have chief clinical information officers who tend to be doctors. Well, what about everybody else? So yeah, we've just appointed digital lead for clinical digital health clinical lead who's a therapist. She's really enthusiastic. She's fab. We've now got a digital midwife. We fund one of our practice development team, nursing. So a lot of my job is about building those relationships. I think skilling up others to do. My perfect day would be to do nothing at work. So I don't have to worry about things going down, and there's a whole bunch of people who know how to make the changes that they need to make the changes there and then.
Yeah.
That would feel like job done.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me.
So talk to me about your other role then, because you're also the CIO lead at South Yorkshire and South Yorkshire and Bassetlaw, ICS.
Yeah, so we've established ICSs across the countries, or STPs. Those been around long enough. They're just regional health authorities in another name. I don't think they are. They're a little bit sort of different. The NHS are all industries, expanding that contract. So that's around mainly being a how can I explain? I want to say it's not a critical friend. That's not true, really. It's supporting the ICS team in terms of having some grounded relevance to any sort of particular changes or things they're going to sort of do. So we've got a GP in Rotherham who's the lead digital clinical person, and there's a full-time digital program director who's ex-NHS Digital, cracking a lot of digital there. And he really runs that day in, day out. Yeah. He's setting up all the strategy, he's creating the team that's sort of delivering, and I'm used more of a soundboard as anything else, to test some of that out. And it's about trying to bring the whole system together.
Yeah, of course.
Shape or form. Trying to bring the whole system together, but then also sort of recognizing the need to connect things before we really must connect things. So what do I mean by that? So I got a really good presentation, or I was looking to be a presentation from Cindy Fidel over at Bradford, who has led the Nightingale implementation in Harrogate. And she talks about, which I think is spot on, is if we'd done things like better shared records across the whole of Yorkshire Humber, the Nightingale response would have been a bit easier. But because that's not there, it makes some of the Nightingale sharing information more difficult.
Yeah. See, do you think for someone outside of the NHS to think that, because everyone thinks of the NHS as one organisation, right? The people that aren't aware what the NHS, is a cluster of organisations, right? If you ask Joe Public, do you think if you went to hospital, or do you think? I think they'd be pretty shocked to think that records aren't shared there's not one system to share records as such
Yeah.
across the country, let alone across a jurisdiction, a certain area, a city or a county.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, what's the question? Do you think people?
So, do you think that? I don't know actually what the question was. It's more of a statement, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Talk about saying stuff and not saying anything.
Yeah, we tried to solve that with the National Programme for IT. So, I was in the NHS when all that stuff happened. I can remember the whirlwind of change. And, if you're ever bored and want a decent read, then read Tony Blair's biography, because he, essentially got my take on it is he got a visit by Bill Gates, who gave him the big sort of IT sort of thing. Great idea, let's do it. And then within about 2 years, they created the National Programme for IT. And away you go. And that was like a top-down implementation. And we're still sort of learning from that, I guess, really. So in an ideal world, there will be one big system across the whole sort of piece. But we're a fragmented business. We are. Now, I think the premise of what you're saying is, do members of the public expect us to be able to share information? I think the answer to that is yes. With that in mind, I think sometimes we don't enable that easy enough ourselves. I use the phrase hide behind IG. I'm not right sure. IG gets a bad press sort of sometimes. That it's there for a reason, and that reason's wholly legitimate. But we've got to find ways sort of through that, and sometimes we've got to push against that. It's we talk about in South Yorkshire Bachelor on the ICS is, you can't, if there's no data, you can't share it. So we create big monoliths of sharing systems, but you've got to get the basics sort of right. So if we don't have EPRs and electronic patient records and digitalized systems, you can't share the bloody things anyway. And that's what a lot of people are coming across at the moment.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And the other bit with what was last about the South Yorkshire Bachelor piece is what's pretty good. I think it's not just South Yorkshire, but it's the same in other parts of the country. I think there's a really good network across Yorkshire and Humber. So we have something called the Northern Yorkshire. It's called NIDIF, Northern Yorkshire Direct Informatics Forum. It's been running for 26, 27 years. No, 28 years. So well before my time. So there's a good sort of network of, across the whole of Yorkshire and Humber. So, we talk a lot to each other. We share a lot of stories with each other. We check things out with each other. My challenge now being of some level of seniority in that sort of mix is making sure that we don't end up with what I would call an old boys network. Because I can remember before I got to where I am, it felt like a bloody old boys network. And I don't want that. I would personally hate to think that people outside of that sort of echelon of senior leadership think this is an old boys network that I can't get into.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think it's quite, all of the stuff around kind of diversity and inclusion and stuff very topical at the minute. And I think that I certainly have to tackle my unconscious bias because we've all got it, right? And you're naturally you're naturally drawn to, for us as white men, for example, we're naturally drawn to other white men. And so we certainly do have to tackle that. And I think it's good that you are thinking of that.
And we have this is all about, to me, networking and all that sort of stuff. And so we've got something in Yorkshire we call the Informatics Skills Development Network. So that's about enabling people who are at the beginning of their NHS career to form their own networks and skills development and get to know one another. Because often the best way to get to build your own networks is to move around, but not everybody can move around for lots of reasons. So my job is to ensure people can interconnect with one another and learn from good practice and all that sort of stuff. So for me, that's really important. It's really, really important. So who's going to be doing my job in 5, 10, 15 years time? So, some days I bloody hope it's not me, but we'll see.
Cool. Right. Well, let's move on. Last bit, really. Just want to talk about some personal stuff, because I know you're pushed for time now. So you obviously mentioned about being a good dad earlier. So you're obviously a father, and so how many children have you got?
2.
Two
We
ages?
do 18 and 19.
Yeah, and boys, girls, or mixed?
One of each. So the eldest is a girl,
Yeah,
yeah, and the other one's a boy, George.
the perfect family then, yeah.
Yeah, 2.4 kids, sort of, I think. Yeah. So, in fact, George has just got out. So he was supposed to do his A-levels this year. So
He can go
it's
rave
quite.
for another year like his dad then, right?
You want to say that again? Sorry.
He can go and rave for another year like his dad then.
No, they're talking. All this lockdown stuff sort going on. It seems to be starting to happen a little bit. I think he's always going out. So but he's turned 18 during lockdown, and I can't imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah, that's he'll have to have an extra big one when it's all over.
Yeah, that's his plan. I think.
So what's your hobbies? What do you like to do outside of work?
What do I do outside of work?
Think about work.
Yeah, I think about work because I enjoy work. I tried to, my head of EPR, Laura, who was another sort of star of the sort of future. We were on about this the other day actually, and she's sort of similar. I enjoy work, and so I think about work outside of work.
I love
Actually, why not? So yeah, so I think about. But I was joking aside. There's a church bit, so I don't always do as much as that as I think I should, but that's probably Catholic guilt more than anything. So if people are listening, Catholics, they'll know that intuitively.
Yeah.
I fairly recently up until fairly recently was chair of governors for a local primary school for 13 years. So I used to do sort of a lot of that until the sort of kids left that sort of school.
Yeah.
We stayed a little bit sort of too long. I still like, so we talked very early about the beginning of the interview. I used to be in the air cadets when I was younger. So I still like flight. So what do I mean? So occasionally I will go flying. So I can't take my pilot's license because of my ear.
Yeah.
But you can, like pleasure flights, you can hire a plane for whatever, for an hour. And, someone will take off and you can fly it around. You can sort of come back home again.
So what you've got almost like you've got a pilot there that's got complete control, but you can take over the steering wheel for a little bit.
Yeah. So I do that a couple of times a year. That's fun. I build. I don't do it as much now, but I used to be writing to sort of quadcopters and building my own. Like drones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but building my own from scratch.
There's your engineering background coming out.
Yeah, it's completely geeky, but I build them from scratch. So don't buy them. Buy all the parts from China. They come over. And yeah,
you have to replace the bits that are broken when they come over.
Yeah, it's the most insane hobby because it just smashes all the time. So yeah, I used to do that until sort of quite regular. But yeah, and then go for a lot of walking. I've been for the last year or so, do quite a lot of walks with Mrs. Rawlinson.
Yeah.
Just go for rambling. Mate of mine likes metal detecting, so yeah, which is just pointless, really. That's just two old fellas walking around in a field with a piece of plastic, as far as I'm concerned. Getting overexcited and finding a rusty nail.
Oh, what's this? Oh,
yeah, nothing, just a rusty old nail.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I have enough to sort of keep myself busy. Watching TV, probably watch far too much on TV. I'm rewatching Breaking Bad at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said to my missus, because she rewatched Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, why don't we rewatch Breaking Bad?" And what's your favourite series on Breaking Bad?
So I'm up to season 4.
Yeah.
So last night.
Season 4 is brilliant.
Yeah, the bit I watched last night is when Gus killed the sort of cartel by poisoning them. I don't know if you remember that one. So yeah, I think the one I'm currently watching is by far the best.
Yeah. Is that before the train bit where they're
yeah,
where they're digging under the train?
It's definitely before that bit because I never watched season 5, so I think you might be talking about something in season possibly.
Oh, sorry, I've just ruined it for you.
No, you just spoiled it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm quite watching that. So yeah, do a mix.
Is that what you're trying to? Is that your next career move then?
Which bit?
Yeah, cooking up. Starting
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
No, definitely not. No, definitely not. So yeah, that's what I do outside of sort of work. Keeps me occupied. Yeah, and see a lot of my family as well. My sister, my dad's on around sort of corner, seeing quite
Yeah.
a lot. And we've got a dog who she's about 15 years old now and probably on her way. So we're spending a lot of time going back and forwards to the vets of all places.
Oh, bless.
Yeah, bless
What
her.
you got? What was the dog?
She's a mix between a Chihuahua, Yorkshire Terrier, and a Parsons sort of terrier. But she's just old and
Yeah.
lips around and has got bad breath.
That's all dogs for you, though, isn't it?
That's all dogs for you.
Yeah. Well, there we are. Well, thank you so
Cool.
much for joining me on this. It's been a pleasure to get to know the person behind the job title.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to that episode of the P&E podcast. If you like what you heard, please make sure that you share this episode via your social media channels, as it really does help us to gain traction in promoting this podcast series. Please make sure that you also subscribe to the channel that you're listening via, as you'll then get notifications as soon as we release our next podcast episode. Thank you.